Howdy, howdy. Caveman here. Time to reflect on more things I have learned. We will try my darndest not to make this too long, and I might even cut it short. I will preface it as my discovery of Paul Chek. I did hear about him maybe a year or two ago, and for whatever reason, the timing wasn't right to dive into his material. How do I describe him? He is a man of great wisdom, to say the very least. He is most accessible through his podcast, although he has also created something called the Paul Chek Institute. The podcast is called Living D with Paul Chek. To describe it would be the deepest conversations ever recorded with modern podcasts consistently. And if that doesn't excite you to want to learn more, he's about 60 years old. When I first listened to him, he was actually a guest on another podcast with Aubrey Marcus. But hearing him talk, it was like listening to a possible version of myself after I've lived a couple more lifetimes and gained vast amounts of understanding and wisdom. He's someone that can astral travel and remote view. He's held a lot of different, plant healing ceremonies. I think he first was making his mark in, body movements and different things that became trendy 20, 30 years ago. Even the stuff I've learned about from Dr. Cruz, I think Chek was on to before that. Anyway, jumping into the guests that I have listened to last week with him, and his podcasts are like 3 hours long, so they're a lot to bite off, and they're freaking a whole buffet of information. So real quickly, first was the episode with Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who has pioneered what he's called biogeometry, and that is almost too much to unpack completely in a couple sentences. But the major takeaway, first of all, I think it would be appropriate to summarize what Dr. Karim and his children are working on. Might be the most profound bridge between spirituality and science, especially when overlaid with our modern condition, and that is, referencing Dr. Cruz again, in my early discoveries of the detriments of non-native EMFs, so all the signals, phones, cell towers, you name it. Dr. Karim has been studying for 60 years and understanding how to appropriately interface our biology that is lagging in terms of progression relative to the technology that's coming out. In other words, you got the cell tower, your cell phone, buzzing out at 2.4 billion hertz per second, and we oscillate at maybe 80 to 100. So you have this mismatch in resonance, i.e. chaos, inflammation, cancer, and disease. And Karim has been able to create these products, and one of them is just this little cube, apparently, that you can put in your home. In biogeometry, I think he summarized as the science of quality, which is very interesting. But this cube is supposed to, given the shapes that are imprinted on it, reorganize the resonance of the disturbance, the EMFs, and reconfigure them in a way that aren't harmful for the body. That in and of itself should be the most jaw-dropping, panty-dropping discovery since we freaking started putting up radio towers. And I think if you don't quite grasp the significance of EMFs to begin with, it's going to be even harder to grasp the significance of Dr. Karim's discovery related to biogeometry. All right. The second one was Walt Thornhill and the Electric Universe. This was actually the second time I listened to it, because even though Dr. Karim's is profound, Dr. Thornhill's is like, what the fuck? Like, I thought I knew what was going on. And this guy's strictly, I don't want to say strictly, it's much more on the scientific than just the spiritual side, but it does help to explain so many of the spiritual things. So, major takeaways that are going to leave you scratching your head with Dr. Thornhill are: he will, through the model of the electric universe, attempt to describe and persuade, and it's all very believable, the lack of the gravitational force and its importance in regards to how planets follow other planets, and it is in fact an electrical connection, not a gravitational. He will dissuade you on the existence of black holes. He'll even go so far as to believe or try to express that photons don't exist. And it wasn't that light doesn't exist, and it certainly does come down to semantics with him on some level, but it was that a photon is not being emitted, even though quantum mechanics, quantum physics has tried to express that something exists both as a wave and a particle. And what he was describing is that there's not a photon being sent, but that, and I might be butchering this, a particular electrical resonance is being emitted by, say, the sun, and your eye tunes into that same frequency or resonance and therefore picks it up. So to listen to Thornhill will be paradigm shifting. That's a hard one to jump into. And then actually the most exciting one for me personally was 2 episodes ago. I can't remember his name, but it was a student / client of Chek's who's got this farm in California who started practicing biodynamics. And I had heard that before, and I had just thought it was like super organic growing, and it had something to do with the moon cycles. And then when they said that it was started by I don't even know if it's a doctor, but it was started by Rudolf Steiner, and I had just bought his book, because Chek talks about it all the time. He's got hundreds of books, but I actually bought his last series of lectures. And come to find out, this Steiner dude is his own freaking stage wizard of his own to unpack, but biodynamics has everything to do with the agriculture in tune with the cycles and movements of the celestial beings. And I couldn't be any more into something than that description, and it immediately became apparent that my 40 acres is going to have to be a biodynamic driven farm, which was I guess a relief, and at the same time I was like, there's so much more to learn. So the topics I just prefaced are friggin' hours and hours and hours and years and days and lifetimes of rabbit holes to go down. But takeaway: get into Paul Chek. Living 4D with Paul Chek is profound. And if you want 2 mind-bending episodes to start with, listen to Dr. Ibrahim Karim, and then the one with Walt Thornhill, because your mind will dissolve into ooze and pour out of your brain, and then you'll have to scoop it back up and start to put the pieces together. All right, time to go to work.